The first one arrived in the middle of winter. At first no one noticed the deaths: a hiker in Alaska torn apart in the snow, a mining team in Siberia, their camp left in ruins, no tracks, no witnesses, no signs of life, just blood, ripped steel, and a chilling silence that spread faster than the frost. The Pentagon classified the incidents as highly anomalous biological attacks, but within 2 months the pattern grew, faster, more precise. Communications outposts were wiped out. Military personnel vanished from secured bases without triggering alarms. Drones caught only glimpses: a blurred figure with eyes like burning coals in motion far too fast for any terrestrial creature. When the first live feed came in, everything changed. A remote U.S. recon drone above Greenland captured thermal footage of something running through a storm. The creature's body temperature was too cold to be human, yet it moved with terrifying coordination, leaping between ice ridges, claws glinting under the aurora. A soldier watching the feed whispered, "That's no animal." The signal cut seconds later. The world never saw that footage. Inside a dark briefing room at Fort Bragg, Colonel Samuel Drake studied the frozen image on the screen. He was a man built from 40 years of battle scars and bad coffee, eyes hardened from Iraq to the Pacific. Across from him sat Dare, Mira Layton, xenobiologist from DARPA, her voice steady but her hands trembling slightly as she spoke. "It's not from here," she said. "The tissue samples from the Siberian incident, they're structured from protein sequences that don't exist in terrestrial DNA. The cells have hexagonal bonding patterns. Alien, no doubt." Drake didn't flinch. "You're saying an alien sent a monster to hunt us?" "Not a monster," she corrected. "An assassin." Drake looked at the image again. The creature's silhouette was half wolf, half nightmare, lean muscle, elongated limbs, and a head that seemed to shimmer faintly as though cloaked in energy. "How many?" he asked. "We don't know. But it's intelligent. It avoids detection, targets infrastructure, and—" She hesitated. "Feeds on humans, specifically on cerebral tissue. Within days, an operation was formed under top-level secrecy, codenamed Talon. Special forces teams across NATO were recalled, their missions wiped from the books. Blackhawks lifted in the dead of night, deniable assets only. The world went on believing it was at peace, while in the shadows humanity fought for survival. The first confirmed encounter came from Norway, an elite strike team known as Viper. One was deployed after satellite sweeps showed anomalous movement through the fjords. The night was moonless, the air heavy with mist. Sergeant Cole Jennings led his 6-man unit through the frozen valley, NVGs scanning for heat signatures. "Command, Viper 1 in position," Cole whispered. "Copy, Viper 1. Proceed with caution," came Drake's voice through the comm. They moved silently until the sensors beeped. "Movement fast. Closing in." Cole signal. "Thermal contact. Bearing 085. Whispered Lopez, his sniper. "It's damn cold." "Not human." Then the forest erupted. A shadow leapt from the trees faster than thought. The first soldier never screamed, just disappeared, his body torn clean from his armor. Gunfire flared. The team fell back, firing blindly into the mist. The creature moved between bursts like a ghost, its growl vibrating through the ground. "Itself on target," shouted Cole. He switched to thermal. Nothing. Then suddenly it was there, inches from his face. He fired point blank. The rounds tore into its chest. But the thing didn't fall. It staggered back, black ichor dripping from wounds that smoked in the cold air. For a second, Cole saw it clearly, for rippling with nanoscopic light, teeth made of alloyed bone, and eyes burning blue. Then it vanished again, shimmering out of sight like heat haze. The fight lasted 72 seconds. When the extraction chopper arrived, only Cole and Lopez were alive, both drenched in blood. Cole's voice on the recording trembled. "It's a goddamn army. Within the month, attacks spread. India, Brazil, Ukraine, entire villages vanished overnight. Power grids went down in patterns suggesting strategy, not chaos. These creatures weren't beasts, they were soldiers, wolves engineered for war." Through encrypted transmissions intercepted from an orbital relay, scientists at JPL decoded fragments of alien communication. The message was short but clear. Phase 1 Earth Purge. That's when humanity stopped investigating and started fighting back. The first victory was accidental. A research convoy in the Mojave Desert was ambushed by one of the assassins, but when their power generator exploded, the creature convulsed violently and disintegrated under the electromagnetic pulse. That moment changed everything. Dr. Layton discovered that the creature's bioarmor and cloaking fields depended on quantum resonance technology, an alien energy field vulnerable to EMP disruption. Colonel Drake saw the opportunity. "Would turn their advantage into a weakness," he said. Project Iron Howl was born within weeks. Defense contractors and DARPA engineers collaborated to create pulse rifles and micro-EMP grenades designed to destabilize the Wolves' cloaking systems. Special forces were retrained to hunt invisible targets. The world's best pilots flew under new protocols, engaging unseen enemies in the clouds. But the aliens were always one step ahead. They began deploying new versions, smarter, faster, with adaptive armor that absorbed electromagnetic bursts. One infiltrated a military base in Nevada, taking human form for 20 hours before anyone realized. The security footage showed a soldier calmly walking the halls smiling, until his reflection flickered into the wolf's shape. Then chaos erupted. By spring, humanity was losing again. Drake stood before a map lit with red markers spreading across continents. "They're learning," he said. "They're evolving in real time." Dr. Layton turned from the screens, exhaustion in her eyes. "Then we need to evolve faster." Her plan was dangerous, insane even. Use captured alien tissue to synthesize a neurovirus that could target the creature's quantum neural net. But to make it, they needed a live specimen. Drake exhaled slowly. "Then we hunt one alive." The room fell silent again. Outside, thunder rolled across the base as if the world itself understood what they were planning. Humanity had finally chosen to fight not with fear, but with fury, and somewhere in the darkness of the Rockies, one of the wolves lifted its head and howled, a sound that wasn't just animal but mechanical and mournful, as if it knew the war had only begun. They called it Operation Grey Fang. The world knew nothing. Not the civilians living their quiet lives under the illusion of peace. Not the news anchors debating politics while cities quietly built underground bunkers. And certainly not the governments who didn't have clearance. Only 6 nations were in the loop, and even they had fragments of the truth. The operation was to capture one of the alien wolf assassins alive. Colonel Drake stood in front of the team at Groom Lake, his voice echoing across the hangar's cold steel walls. "You all know why you're here. We've lost bases, men, and half our satellite grid to these things. But tonight we're not running. Tonight we hunt one alive. 12 operators, specialists drawn from Delta SAS and JTF-2. Their faces were stone. The briefing holo displayed a 3D scan of a mountain range in northern Colorado, dense forest, minimal civilian presence, and a high probability of creature activity. Dr. Mara Layton stepped forward, her lab coat swapped for a field suit, eyes fierce behind her visor. "We believe the target returns to that area weekly. It's using it as a nest or data relay point. The creature's neurofield emits a quantum resonance we can track. We've built a resonator to bait it, projecting the frequency it uses to communicate." One of the soldiers, Captain Ramirez, frowned. "So we're ringing its dinner bell?" "Exactly," Drake said. "And when it shows up, you don't kill it. You disable it EMP first. Tranquilize second. We need it breathing." The air in the hangar thickened. Everyone knew what that meant. Facing one of those things alive up close was suicide, but no one flinched. They were soldiers. Humanity's last wall between extinction and survival added 200 hours. 3 stealth transports cut through the night sky, no lights, no radar trace. The forest below glowed faintly with moonlight and snow. Drones fanned out ahead, scanning for movement. "Eco 1 in position," Ramirez whispered into his mech, deploying bait. Dr. Layton's team activated the resonator. A low-frequency hum rippled through the valley, a vibration that seemed to crawl under the skin. Even the trees shivered. Minutes passed, the forest remained silent. Then, from the east ridge came a sound, a low growl, metallic, distorted. The thermal feed spiked. "It's coming," said Ramirez. The team spread into formation. Weapons loaded with EMP rounds, sensors humming. Heartbeats pounded through their comms. The first sign was the wind. It shifted abruptly, carrying a smell of ozone and blood. Then the snow exploded. A shadow burst from the ridge, moving faster than their sensors could track. It slammed into one of the soldiers, ripping through armor like paper. Screams tore through the comms. Drake shouted through the command channel. Ramirez fired. The grenade detonated midair, a blue pulse expanding across the forest. The creature convulsed, its body shimmering as the cloak failed. For a second they saw it clearly, towering, sleek, its skin a mix of flesh and liquid metal. Its face was neither wolf nor man, but something between, a predator sculpted for precision killing. "Trank it, now." 2 darts hit the creature's neck. It staggered, howled, a sound that made the earth vibrate, and then lunged straight at Ramirez. He met it head-on. Firing full auto, he dove to the side as it crashed into a fallen log. The second EMP went off and the thing collapsed, twitching violently, black fluid hissing into the snow. "Target down," someone shouted. "Repeat, target down." Layton exhaled shakily through the comm. "Don't approach it directly." Neural discharges can arc for minutes after paralysis. but the team was already moving in, securing the perimeter. The alien's eyes flickered, glowing faintly blue beneath the frost. Even unconscious, it radiated danger. Jesus, Ramirez muttered, staring down at it. Looks like it's part machine. Leighton's voice came through. They're hybrids, bio-synthetic, living code wrapped in flesh. They airlifted the creature to a secure facility beneath NORAD. By dawn it was sealed in a reinforced containment chamber lined with electromagnetic barriers. Dr. Leighton stood outside the glass, watching as robotic arms extracted samples. This is history, she whispered. Drake didn't share her awe, he just stared. No, this is war. For 3 days they studied it. The creature's biology was unlike anything on Earth, an adaptive neural mesh that healed itself, a circulatory system carrying liquid metal and synthetic enzymes, and beneath its skin, nodes that pulsed like miniature reactors. When the creature woke, everything changed. It didn't thrash or roar. It simply stared, its gaze locked onto Dr. Leighton through the observation glass, unblinking. Is it aware? She asked quietly. Drake's jaw tightened. It's studying you. A voice filled the chamber, not a growl but speech. Broken, distorted English. You took one? Leighton froze. It can talk. The creature's head tilted. You fight wrong war? What does that mean? She asked, stepping closer. Its eyes glowed brighter. Where are not enemy? Before anyone could respond, the monitors spiked. Neural activity surged. The creature's vitals skyrocketed. It's breaking through the detection. Shut it down, Drake ordered. The containment chamber erupted in sparks. Energy waves burst across the walls, shattering the glass. Soldiers rushed in as the creature convulsed, then went still. Dr. Leighton stared at the smoking remains. It overloaded itself. No, Drake said grimly. It sent a signal hours later. Every satellite orbiting Earth detected the same transmission, a pulse from deep space. A response followed 12 minutes later. Then the skies began to change. Massive objects entered orbit, invisible to radar but visible to telescopes as distortions in the stars. The alien motherships, observation vessels the size of cities, had arrived. Humanity's time was running out. Dr. Leighton ran simulation. Decoding fragments of the alien signal, her face went pale. It's not a fleet, she whispered. It's a recall. Drake turned. A recall? They were testing us. The Wolves were Phase 1. They're pulling them back. Because Phase 2 is coming. What's Phase 2? She didn't answer. She just looked at the data. Heat signatures forming across the upper atmosphere, thousands of them. Orbital drops, she said finally. They're sending more. And not just assassins this time. Drake stood silently for a moment, the weight of extinction hanging between them. Then he looked up at the screen. Within 48 hours, humanity mobilized like never before. Operation Last Dawn began. Every EMP weapon, every experimental drone, every scrap of alien tech reverse-engineered from the captured Wolf was loaded into the fight. Dr. Leighton's team weaponized the neurovirus, but they had one problem. It needed to be delivered directly into an alien neural node. In other words, someone had to inject it into one of the creatures manually. Drake didn't hesitate. I'll do it myself. Leighton stared at him, eyes wide. You won't survive that kind of exposure. Doesn't matter. At that moment, alarms blared across the base. The screens filled with red. The aliens had begun descending, not in ships, but in packs, hundreds of wolves falling from the sky like meteors, their impact zones lighting up across continents. Drake grabbed his rifle. Looks like they're here early. Outside, the night turned crimson as the first wolves tore through the atmosphere. The invasion had begun. The sky burned red over Colorado Springs. At first it looked like meteors, streams of fire cutting through the atmosphere, leaving molten streaks in their wake. But as they slowed, their shapes changed. They weren't stones. They were living bodies wrapped in energy cocoons. Wolves, thousands of them, descending like divine punishment. Colonel Drake stood on the command deck of NORAD, his reflection shimmering in the glass as the horizon lit up with explosions. They're not landing, he said. They're invading. Dr. Leighton's voice trembled. They're targeting population centers. New York, Moscow, Tokyo, Karachi. Every major power hub. Drake turned to the global feed. Cities around the world were under siege. Wolves emerged from impact craters, their bioarmor glowing, their movements synchronized like a single organism. They weren't just hunting anymore. They were executing a coordinated planetary strike. Activate Last Dawn, he ordered. All over the world, humanity struck back. In the skies over Europe, fighter jets loaded with EMP-tipped missiles engaged the falling wolves midair. The explosions lit up the clouds like thunder in Asia. Railguns mounted on skyscrapers unleashed bursts of tungsten slugs, piercing the creatures before they hit the ground. But it wasn't enough. For every one that fell, 5 more landed. Their claws sliced through tanks. The wolves hunted in silence, moving through smoke and ruin with surgical precision. Cities burned, communications collapsed, and yet humanity refused to fall. In Colorado, Drake led the first counter-operation personally. He moved with the strike team through the shattered ruins of Colorado Springs, night vision flickering. EMP drones hovered overhead, releasing periodic pulses to keep the wolves visible. Eco Squad, flank left, Drake commanded. Stay close, these bastards hunt by sound. Suddenly, one of the soldiers froze. Sir, thermal contact, rear fast. Before Drake could respond, a shape lunged from the darkness. The wolf slammed into the ground where the soldier had stood a moment before, its claws embedding in concrete. Its eyes burned with cold blue light. "Eam out!" Drake shouted. The pulse detonated, exposing the creature in mid-leap. Gunfire erupted. Bullets hissed through the night, each round laced with electromagnetic disruptors. The wolf howled, then fell, its form flickering like a broken hologram before collapsing. Dr. Layton's voice came through the comm. "Colonel, the neurovirus is ready for deployment. But we need a central nexus, something big enough to infect the entire network at once." "What about their command node?" Drake asked. She hesitated. If the wolves operate through hive-link communication, their command center would be the primary transmitter, possibly a central alpha. But it's not on Earth. It's still in orbit. Drake glanced at the burning sky. "Then we take the fight to space." There was silence. Then Layton said, "You're insane, maybe. But it's the only way." By dawn, the world was on fire. New York was a graveyard of glass, Moscow a storm of ash. Yet the human resistance stood, fractured but defiant. Across continents, soldiers and civilians alike fought back with anything they had. Improvised EM bombs, railguns, even drones powered by hacked alien cores. In Alaska, resistance fighters used portable generators to overload entire packs of wolves. In France, the Legion's last division held the Seine Bridge for 12 hours straight. Every street, every ruin became a battlefield. But the tide didn't turn until a coded transmission broke through the chaos. "All units, this is command, we've got something." Drake and Layton stood over the holo map as the feed stabilized. An orbital drone, one of the few left functioning, had picked up a structure above Earth's equator. Massive, invisible to radar, but outlined by heat distortion. "That's it," Layton said softly. "Their control ship." Drake stared at it for a long moment. "Then we're going to board it." The plan bordered on suicidal. They had one operational shuttle capable of breaching orbit, equipped with prototype magnetic drives. They'd call it Falcon Zero, crewed by Drake, Layton, Ramirez, and a skeleton crew of 5. While the world burned below, Falcon Zero launched from an abandoned airstrip in Nevada. The night sky lit with plasma trails as the engines roared. Inside, the crew was silent. Drake sat strapped into the command seat, helmet reflecting the light of the stars. He glanced at Layton beside him, her hand steady despite the tremor in her voice. "Once we reach the ship," she said, "I'll locate the neural core and inject the virus. You'll have to hold them off while I upload it." Drake nodded. "We've done worse." The shuttle broke through the atmosphere, shaking violently as fragments of burning debris passed by. Ahead, the alien mothership loomed, vast, silent, a floating fortress of black steel and light. "Approach vector locked," Ramirez reported, engaging magnetic clamps. A Falcon Zero latched onto the hull, the airlock opened with a hiss. Beyond it lay corridors of shifting geometry, metallic surfaces pulsing with blue light walls that seemed alive. Layton whispered, "It's organic. The whole ship is one living organism." Drake raised his rifle. "Then let's give it cancer." They moved silently through the corridors, guided by Layton's scanner. Every few seconds the walls pulsed. Like the heartbeat of darkness came movement. 4-legged shadows gliding along the walls, eyes igniting in unison. "Contact!" Ramirez shouted. The fight exploded in chaos. Muzzle flashes illuminated the alien corridors, echoing with thunder. Wolves descended from the ceiling, their claws sparking against metal. EMP grenades detonated, lighting the hall with arcs of blue. Drake fired until his rifle overheated. One wolf lunged. He caught it with a knife to the throat, black ichor splattering across his visor. The creature hissed a word, futile, before collapsing. Layton shouted over the comm, "The core's close!" 50 meters ahead, they burst into a massive chamber glowing with alien energy. At its center floated a sphere of light, tendrils connecting to every wall, a pulsating neural heart, the ship itself. Layton approached the console, pulling out the vial of neurovirus. Her hands shook as she connected it to an injector port. "Cover me," she said. Drake and Ramirez held the entrance, firing nonstop as more wolves poured in. The air was thick with static and blood. "Almost there," Layton cried. 5 seconds. A massive figure stepped through the haze, larger than any they had seen, its body armored in black plates, its face marked with symbols that glowed red. The Alpha, it roared, the sound like thunder tearing the ship apart. Ramirez fired, but the Alpha deflected the shots with a single swipe, impaling him against the wall. Drake charged. The Alpha struck him across the chest, throwing him backward. His armor cracked. Ribs splintered, but he rose again, blood running down his face. "Do it, Mara," he shouted. Leighton slammed the injector into the console. The core screamed, a sound like tearing metal. The entire ship trembled. The Alpha lunged toward her, but Drake intercepted it, driving a combat knife deep into its neck. The explosion wasn't fire, it was light. The neural core burst outward in a wave of energy that rippled across the ship. The wolves froze mid-motion, their eyes dimming. On Earth, the creatures stopped killing, their bodies convulsing, then collapsing into ash. Leighton fell to her knees, gasping. "It's working," she whispered. Drake smiled faintly, blood staining his lips. "Told you we'd win." But the Alpha wasn't dead. It rose slowly, eyes glowing brighter than before. Its voice was deeper now, distorted, almost sorrowful. "You think you've won, human, but we were sent to prepare you." "Prepare us for what?" Drake demanded. The Alpha's head tilted. "For the one who comes after." Before Drake could react, the creature exploded in a burst of white light, throwing them both backward. The ship shuddered violently, alarms blaring as sections began to collapse. Drake grabbed Leighton, dragging her toward the escape pod. "We're leaving, but the data?" "Forget it. Move." They launched just as the mothership began to implode, folding in on itself like crushed glass. As they fell through the burning sky, the last thing Drake saw was Earth, scarred, wounded, but alive. The escape pod screamed through the atmosphere, a falling bullet wrapped in fire. Dr. Mira Leighton clung to the harness as gravity crushed her chest. The pod rattled so hard the hull began to buckle. Through the viewport, she could see streaks of flame across the horizon, alien debris burning up as the mothership disintegrated. Beside her, Connell Drake was barely conscious, his uniform scorched, his breathing ragged. "We did it," he muttered, voice breaking between gasps. She glanced at him, blood pooling beneath his armor, his pulse weakening. "Stay with me, Sam, we're almost through." The pod slammed into the Rockies with a deafening impact, carving a molten scar through the snow before grinding to a stop. Silence fell, broken only by the hiss of steam and the crackle of fire. Mira unbuckled herself, crawled over to Drake, and checked his vitals. Weak but alive, she exhaled shakily, tears blurring her visor. "You stubborn bastard." Outside, the night was eerily still. The air smelled of ozone and ash. Through the fog she could see distant flashes, firestorms painting the sky over what had once been Denver. The world was still burning. She dragged Drake from the wreck, laid him beneath a broken tree, and activated the emergency beacon. "Command, this is Dr. Leighton. We're down. Mission complete." "Repeat, core destroyed." "Come into static." No response. The beacon blinked red. No signal. She looked at the sky. Half the stars were gone, obscured by drifting smoke and the fragments of alien wreckage. For a long time she sat there, the cold biting through her suit, wondering if anyone was left to hear her. Hours passed before movement stirred in the trees. She aimed her pistol, hand trembling. A figure stepped into view, a soldier in tattered armor, holding a rifle low. His voice cracked through the helmet calm. "Easy, ma'am, we're not hostiles." Behind him came three more, their faces gaunt, uniforms burned. "Survivors." "Who are you?" she asked. "Sergeant Elias Ward, 1 of 1st. We picked up your crash on thermal." "You're lucky. This area's been clean for hours. Wolves stopped moving about a day ago." Myra frowned. "A day?" Ward nodded. "Yeah." Around the time the sky lit up like Judgment Day. She realized what that meant. The virus had worked. Across the planet, the wolves had gone still, their neural links severed. Humanity had survived, but the relief was hollow. They moved through the ruins together, carrying Drake on a stretcher fashioned from debris. The once mighty forests were scorched black, rivers frozen with ash. They passed the remains of wolves, hundreds of them, burned out husks of alloy and flesh, eyes dull and lifeless. One of the soldiers kicked at a carcass. West, the bastards weren't so immortal after all. Mara stopped beside another corpse, kneeling to inspect it. The flesh was crystalline, translucent, and beneath it shimmered faint threads of light, faint, pulsing, alive. Her stomach turned. "They're not completely dead." Before she could warn the others, one of the bodies twitched. "Contact," Ward shouted. Guns came up, but it was too late. The corpse convulsed violently, splitting open from the inside. Something smaller crawled out, slick with luminescent fluid. It wasn't a wolf, it was larval, unfinished, like an embryo made of metal and bone. Mira fired. The thing shrieked, its body collapsing into smoke. "What the hell was that?" Ward asked, voice trembling. Mira's expression hardened. A fail-safe, they left seeds behind. Drake stirred weakly on the stretcher. Not seeds replacements. Mira turned, kneeling beside him. His eyes were half open, distant but focused. You shouldn't be awake, he managed a faint smirk. I've had worse hangovers. She tried to smile, but his tone changed, cold, serious. Mira, the Alpha, said something before it blew. It said we were being prepared. She froze. Prepared for what? He coughed, blood staining his lips. It wasn't just a war. They reached what was left of an old military outpost at dawn. The sky was ash gray, the world eerily quiet. No birds, no engines, just silence. The outpost was abandoned but intact, satellite dishes half buried in snow. The American flag burned to black. Inside, the walls were lined with screens flickering static. Mira powered up the main console, rerouting energy from the emergency cells. The monitors came to life, displaying fragments of global transmissions. London, no contact from Pacific. Geneva offline? Requesting medical evac. And then, buried in the noise, a voice. Kamalian. This world endures. Myra froze. That's their language. It's still broadcasting. Ward frowned. From where? She traced the signal. It wasn't from orbit, it was coming from beneath the earth, deep beneath. Drake, barely conscious, muttered. They were never invading, they were burrowing. The realization hit her like a blow. The wolves weren't the true invasion, they were clearing the surface. The real threat was underneath. Colonel, she whispered. We have to shut it down before it wakes whatever they left. He tried to sit up but winced. Then you'll have to do it without me. I'm not making it far. No, she said firmly. You're not dying here. He smiled faintly. Orders, doctor. Yeah, she said, voice trembling. Stay alive. Ward approached. If the signal's underground, we've got an old seismic shaft nearby, it goes down at least a mile. We can take you there. Mira nodded. Let's move. They descended into the mountain, following the ancient mining tunnels lit by flickering lamps. The deeper they went, the warmer it became, not from geothermal heat but from something else. The walls began to pulse faintly with light, like veins carrying energy. The soldiers exchanged uneasy glances. What the hell is this place? Mira ran her scanner. It's alien. They've been building beneath us for months, maybe years. The wolves were the surface strike. They were covering for this. They reached a cavern the size of a cathedral. In the center stood a vast structure, part machine, part living tissue, pulsating like a heart. Inside it floated hundreds of crystalline pods, each containing the embryonic forms of something larger. Mira's stomach turned. It's a nursery. The ward swore under his breath. You gotta be kidding me. Drake's voice crackled through the comm. Mira, you see it less, she said quietly. They're breeding replacements. A second wave, then do what you do best. She set down her pack, pulling out the last EMP detonator. It wasn't designed for something this massive, but it would have to do. She wired it to the structure's power veins, sweat running down her face. Ward watched her work. Once this goes off, there's no going back. I know. She glanced at the pods, some of them twitching faintly as though sensing her. They're waking up. Ward raised his rifle. Then we better move fast. The chamber trembled. From the shadows above, shapes began to stir, massive half-formed creatures, their eyes flickering open like dying stars. Mira finished arming the detonator. 3 minutes countdown, they ran. As they reached the tunnel entrance, the air erupted in screams, metallic and primal. The creatures were breaking free, clawing at the walls. Move! Ward shouted. They burst into the open just as the explosion tore through the mountain. A surge of white light followed by a shockwave that flattened the trees for miles. The ground split open and molten rock burst into the sky. For a moment everything was fire. Then silence. Mira lay on the ground, her ears ringing. Snow melting beneath her. The mountain reduced to a smoking crater. She turned, seeing Ward's team scattered but alive. Drake's voice came faintly through the radio, weak but steady. Tell me it's done. She smiled faintly. It's done. But even as she said it, her scanner beeped softly. A faint signal deep beneath the crater. It was still pulsing. The night sky over northern Canada burned orange, not from the aurora, but from the fires of humanity's last stand. The Operation Iron Howl offensive had reached its climax. Across the tundra, armored convoys thundered through snowfields while A-10 screamed overhead, spitting depleted uranium rounds into wolf packs tearing across the ice. The alien assassins were faster, smarter, and deadlier than anything Earth had ever faced. But they were not gods. Colonel Reaves stood inside the command carrier, voice sharp over comms. Echo Squad flank north. Cut off the pack near the refinery. Ghost team, prep the cryo drone. Now the drone. A sleek sphere with quantum cooling emitters hovered above the battlefield, its temperature sensors locking onto the wolves' thermal signatures. These creatures, the Fenrir, had been engineered for stealth and slaughter. But they had one flaw: their nanoflesh burned hot under human-made radiation. The cryo-drone released a pulse, a deep blue shockwave that rolled across the tundra. For the first time, the wolves howled not in victory but pain. Their skin cracked, their nanites froze mid-regeneration, and a few fell, shattering like glass statues under the cold. "Cryopulse successful," shouted Ramirez over the comms.
"They're bleeding out there."
Reaves watched through the drone feed as human squads closed in, flamethrowers hissing. The snow steamed with blood and fire. The Earth's resistance wasn't dying, it was evolving. Then came the real problem. A shadow moved across the sky, blotting out stars. The feed went static for a moment before clearing, and then they saw it, a massive alien vessel descending through the clouds. The Worm-class Leviathan, the flagship of the Krel Dominion. The Fenrir were never meant to win, and were meant to test. And now that humanity had survived the test, the Krel themselves had arrived. Reaves exhaled, eyes narrowing. "So that's how it is," he murmured. "They send the dogs, and when we kill them, the masters come down." The ship opened its lower hangar doors, releasing a wave of green plasma and dozens more wolves. This time fused with alien armor, cybernetic limbs, and targeting implants glowing crimson. "Alpha Fenrirs," said Dr. Lin from command. "Graded variants, they've learned from us." The battle turned apocalyptic. Tanks were thrown aside. Human soldiers screamed into comms as wolves shredded exosuits and ripped drones apart. The Leviathan's plasma turrets ignited entire forests. But amid the chaos, one human unit, Ghost Team, had already slipped beneath the carnage. Reaves, Lin, and Ramirez led a small squad through a tunnel system built during the Cold War, heading straight under the ship's landing site. Their goal: detonate a homemade EMP nuke, built using scavenged alien parts and Earth's last fusion cores. As they moved through the icy tunnels, Reaves could hear the war above, the rumble of plasma, the echo of screams. Ramirez whispered, "You think this will work?" Reaves smiled grimly. "It's not about working. It's about showing them we never go down quietly." They reached the cavern, a natural hollow beneath the Leviathan. The EMP bomb sat in the center, wires glimmering in the flashlight beams. Dr. Lin knelt beside it, hands trembling as she inserted the power core. "This will fry everything within 50 kilometers, she said. "Including us." Reaves placed a hand on her shoulder. "Then let's make sure it counts above them." The ground shook violently. A massive claw punched through the rock, a wolf larger than any before. It burst into the cavern, armored plates glowing like molten steel. The Alpha growled, voice modulated through some alien device. "Humans, persistent but futile." Reaves raised his rifle. "Futile. You built on our soil, you lost your ghosts in our cities. You thought you could break us, but we learned your every move." He fired. The bullet sparked harmlessly off its armor. The Alpha lunged, claws slicing through metal beams. Lin screamed as debris crashed around her. Ramirez dove to cover, firing plasma rounds scavenged from alien rifles. One found a weak joint. The Alpha staggered, snarling. Reaves sprinted forward, slamming his exosuit's power core into overload.
"Lin, arm the bomb."
She hesitated. "You'll never get out." "Didn't plan to," he said. Eyes hard, he charged the wolf, tackling it into the EMP device. The Alpha tore into him, shredding armor, ripping through the chest plate. But Reaves kept punching, slamming the power core deeper. His vision blurred. Alarm screamed in his helmet. Then he saw it, the face of every soldier who died under his command, the burning cities. "The fallen," he whispered. "Earth." The explosion wasn't light, it was silence. Every sound, every scream, every howl vanished in an instant as the EMP detonated. The Leviathan above went dark, its engines freezing mid-burn. Wolves fell dead mid-leap. The ship crashed into the tundra like a dying god. All across the battlefield, humans stopped firing and watched the sky split open. When dawn rose hours later, humanity's cities were in ruins. But the alien presence was gone. The Fenrir corpses turned to ash, their nanites disintegrating. The Leviathan lay half buried in ice, silent. In a bunker deep below, Dr. Lin woke, bleeding but alive. Ramirez crawled beside her, coughing. Reaves, as she looked toward the collapsed tunnel, only debris and smoke. She shook her head slowly. Gwesi stayed to make sure it worked. From the distance, she could see the wreckage of the alien ship glowing faintly against the rising sun. Humanity had won, but the cost was written across every shattered city, every grave. A transmission flickered on the bunker's cracked monitor. A faint alien signal. Words scrolled across the screen in a language Earth systems had only half decoded. Then a translation appeared, evaluation complete. Resistance potential extreme. Phase 2 delayed. Alin stared at it, breath shaking. They're not done with us. Ramirez laughed bitterly. Then we'll be ready next time. Outside, across the world, survivors began rebuilding. Soldiers helped civilians, engineers scavenge alien wreckage, and children watched drones carve the sky, spelling out words no one had seen in years. Wreck, human eye, and duress. The far beyond the solar system, the Krel Dominion watched in silence. On their bridge, the alien commander reviewed the footage of Earth's defense. He tilted his head, eyes narrowing at the final transmission. The image of Colonel Reaves standing unbroken before the detonation. Fascinating, the alien said softly. They fight like animals, but dream like gods. The stars reflected in his eyes as he whispered to his crew, prepare the next phase. They've earned a harder war. But on Earth, under a bruised and thawing sky, humanity stood stronger than ever. They had fought wolves from the stars and lived to tell the tale. And in that victory they found something far more powerful than technology or strength. They found unity. And somewhere deep in the ruins of the Arctic, under ice and ash, the last whisper of Colonel Reaves' calm signal flickered once more before fading into static. A single phrase looping endlessly. We are not prey.